Hello, this is Tytti, an Associate Trainer for Art2Ride. I'm going to talk through one of my riding sessions here with Bolu, who is our Finn horse. He's an 8-year-old gelding who we have had and trained with Art2Ride foundation training method for about 2.5 years now. So, as mentioned earlier, he hasn't had any physical issues bar the problem with his mouth to a very big and sensitive tongue. So otherwise he has just had a lack of top line muscling from the start. So in the beginning here, I just let him have a bit of his own tempo in the walk at first, and just walking around once or twice and just establishing the stretch here. And I try not to micromanage him, so to say. I noticed the ride before this one I was trying to ask him all the time something, and I noticed that it kind of was counterproductive. So he got more annoyed and so on, because I was managing everything he was doing. So this time I decided to just back off a bit and just sit and let him do his thing, and if he needed really correcting, then I would do that correction. And I can notice that I haven't been riding terribly much the past few months, because we haven't had a fitting saddle for him, and I haven't wanted to ride him in a saddle that is uncomfortable for him, because that doesn't really help him or me or the training or anything at all. So he has been mainly lunged over the summer, and we've done in hand obviously as well, and very rarely ridden, mostly just out or such, just walking out on a hack, that sort of stuff. But now we have the wonderful Horrobin saddle since beginning of September, and it has really been a huge difference with him. You can tell if something doesn't, if the saddle doesn't fit him, he won't do any lateral work very well. So that's a clear indication from him. So here I'm starting with a little bit of leg yield. This is actually his more difficult side I'm starting with. So the left side is always more difficult for him, because his right side of his body is a little bit kind of tenser, or is a little bit, perhaps a bit shorter. So he finds it difficult to stretch that side. And obviously if we do lateral work on the left rein towards the right, that will stretch his right side. And you can see that he's a little bit uncomfortable with it in the beginning here. But he's doing it, so that's fine. And I've done in-hand session here before the riding, I believe, if I remember right. But he has had a little bit of warm-up session before I started riding him that day. And yeah, so here I'm doing another leg yield. And the leg yields could be a little bit better, but as I said, this is the beginning, and he finds it difficult towards this side. But I managed to keep him quite straight, which is important for him, because he tends to avoid the work by overbending his neck otherwise, and that's very clear in the work from the ground, where he can do it a lot easier. So that's one big advantage of riding him, that I can keep him far straighter on the lateral work. So, and then I'll do start some shoulder fore work here. So I did 3 times leg yields to the long sides, and then I'll do the same amount of shoulder fore. And it's the same thing with him, he finds it difficult on this side to stretch his right side. But he's doing pretty well. And he could stretch a little bit lower, but as I have said in the other videos, he has so much muscle that he doesn't necessarily have to go all the way down to activate his top line, but I think I would like to see him a little bit lower with his head. And here you can see he's a bit protesting and pulling his head a little bit too high, but then he stretches down again pretty nicely here. So that's pretty good. That's pretty optimal for him. Obviously, the lower he stretches, the better he engages his top line still. But he doesn't necessarily have to go all the way down to use his back and top line. So here you see that he wants to kind of yank the reins a little bit, but I'm just gently resisting him of doing that. I'm just keeping my keeping the length of the rein I have. It still is the weight of rein contact, but when he yanks, he obviously does get a little bit of a resistance there from me. And here I'm just asking for a little bit more activity on the diagonal when I'm changing the rein, but that doesn't go very well, so he's lifting his head way too high, and he's losing the good connection he has had there. So that was a very good example of non-optimal work from him. It's good to see as well. So he was just pulling his neck in a bit and lifting it a bit too high so that the underneck got active, and he was starting to work with his shoulders rather than the whole of his back. Still, I'm seemingly sitting pretty nice and even on him, so that's good to see. I'm not terribly crooked anywhere, so that's great. Even after such a little riding over the summer. But I have noticed that my right hip has become a bit of an issue, so it has been quite stiff, and that's just from not riding for that long. So, but it has started to supple up again since I've been riding a lot more now. After this video as well, it's been a lot more riding, which is great fun. He's progressing very nicely. But here you see a little bit nicer activity, so I'm gaining a little bit more activity here, and that's great. And this is right side, obviously, which is easier for him. And you can indeed see that he does not need to go all the way down to keep that nice connection from behind to the front. So I've just given him a round of just walking straight here, just getting him going and trying not to disturb him too much, just letting him walk without managing him every step. And I have to say that he felt a lot more active in real life than what you see here, so it's quite interesting how the video looks less active than how I felt it. But here go with the first leg yield, and as you can see, it's going a lot better than on the other side. I just have to avoid the pony here, so I didn't do such a leg yield all the way to the railing. And I obviously thought that was a very good leg yield. He was quite straight, and he stepped nicely. So he was listening to me very nicely. That's why I was patting him. And here the same. I think here he goes a little bit too much, maybe a little bit too much bend on his neck there, but otherwise it was looking all right. So I need to think about still keeping his neck straighter on this rein, especially because as with the groundwork he tends to jackknife, so to say, quite easily. But it's getting better the more I pay attention to it and more I control the outside rein, and trying not to touch the inside rein very much at all, just keeping the slight contact. As you can see here, I'm just opening up my inside hand, so I keep the contact, but I don't use the inside rein so much. And I was pleased with that again, because he kept himself straighter and he was doing some nice lateral stepping. And then we get a little bit of more of a stretch, and he's stretching his neck also forward and not just down, so that's great to see. As Finn horses, they tend to very, very quickly and easily pull their neck in. It's just a trait they have. They do it so easily. And here I'm doing a little bit of shoulder fore then, again. A little bit more bend and a little bit too much bend, and he thought that I was going to go for a circle. So that's why a small blip there, but otherwise it looks actually very nice. I stay quite nicely, consistently on the 3 tracks, and he is not too much, he's not overbending that much with his neck to the inside there, so that was good. And here again we have a little bit too, I was a little bit too strong with my 8 there, so he was almost turning to a circle there. And this is perhaps not as nice shoulder fore as the previous one. You can see there that when he lifts his head a bit too high, his lower neck gets active, and he's losing the good work over his back. And with him you can indeed see very clearly when he starts to draw in his neck, and it's it's a fine balance there when he works optimally and when it doesn't go as nicely. Okay, and still I think I still do one shoulder fore here. Yeah, at first it doesn't quite go. I make him straight, and then I'll do it again. Just a couple of really nice steps there. I was very pleased with those couple of steps, because he kept his neck forward and straight this time, that he didn't just bend his neck and avoid the real work with that. Okay, that was the work, and I'm just asking, I was thinking I must be starting to trot soon, so here we go with Trot. And this is what happens quite often with him, the first half circle or so, that he just tends to lift his head really high. What I do is, as you can see, I'm just following his head with my hands and just keep the contact, and I just ask him to move on, and that's all I do. And he tends to just get on with it and start stretching and working through. As you see here, I'm just keeping the contact and asking him to move on, and he does. It's just what he does quite often in the beginning still. And also here he tends to just sometimes again fall through his shoulder, avoid work, but as I get the trot established, he's starting to work really nicely here. Like, this is really beautiful, nice stretch, and with Trot here, optimal trot for him in this session is somewhere below the knees and lower. I'm just doing a little bit of leg yield there, just some steps, and then that's a wonderful stretch there. That's great. He's really hoovering the ground, so to say. And It's just looking really good. So here, that type of, so just below the knees, and he's working really well. Just above the knees, and it's a bit too much for him to keep the optimal work. So it's a fine line with this during this session, like there. He's moving with quite nice activity though. He always his trot is always more active than his walk. Has said that he finds the walk work far more difficult than trotting. And here's our first canter of the session, and as you can see, he can canter a lot better than he could for, well, last spring. Then when I showed the first time, we got the canter going the first times, and it's improved immensely. It's just wonderful how he canters these days, and he wants to canter. He's just waiting for it to happen. And it also helps his trot work, and gets himself a lot more supple after the canter, so it's very useful. And now you see a big difference with the saddle. The first, if you look at the first trots, the saddle was quite immovable, and now you can see it moving a little bit more with him. That means that he's pushing a little bit more with his back upwards, so that the saddle is moving a little bit upwards with him. That's what I noticed when I was looking at this video a little bit earlier on, like, oh, hang on. There you can see a very clear difference that after the canter, he started using his back a lot more. And you can see that he has a lot more energy in his step. And here I was changing the rein, and he thought, like, I actually allowed him to walk a little bit, so we can have a little bit of a break there. So I have to say that the saddle has made a big difference how he uses his back. I think before he couldn't really keep his back up as well as he can with this saddle. It's just because this saddle does not pinch him, so it's better. And here you can see me starting to trot on the left rein, and he really likes that cantering. So he's thinking, like, shall we just canter on? And I said, no, we want to have a trot now. And he's just offering the canter by himself there. Also because he feels nicer with the canter. It's easier for him to canter than trot with the stretch and work through his back properly. Yeah. But as I said, with the saddle, it's been a big difference. You basically the dip behind his saddle when I trot is just disappeared. It just disappeared overnight. So it's been really great to see the big difference. And here you see me doing some of the lateral work. And he obviously finds it a little bit difficult, but he's listening, and he's doing it in a kind of semi-stretch anyway. Here you see how he's coming a little bit too high with his head, and I'm just doing a little bit of a leg yield here and walk, and then he's starting to stretch a little bit and release that tension on his right side. And what I do here is I'm just following his head with my hands and keeping the contact as constant as I can. So just keeping the weight of rein contact wherever his head is. I'm taking the slack off the reins. And I'm trying not to use the inside rein too much. And here's a little bit of shoulder 4 as well. which he finds difficult, and you can see how he's curling up and he's pushing his neck in again here, which is really his way of saying like, I can't do this. It's too difficult, but he's trying anyway, and we'll get him stretching back soon enough. But here is also complaining. I'm just asking a little bit of a shoulder fore there, and he's just thinking no, it's too difficult, and he's curling up and doing it. So it's not me getting a more heavier contact. It's just him reacting to the work I'm asking him. So it's him pulling his neck in himself, and so I'm just following with the reins, whatever he's doing. And here he's stretching a lot nicer now. I'm just asking him to move on straight. So there we go. He's having a couple of nice stretches, and I think then I'm asking for canter, yes. There was a little bit of lateral work there as well. Not asked for, but that was all right. So his canter on the left has always been easier for him. As you can see, he's stretching also into the canter. So that's really lovely work. I really love that. I really love his canter work these days, because it's come so far. I mean, I don't think we did not get a good canter from him until basically this autumn with the new saddle. He's really come very far with his canter. We started cantering him from the saddle this spring, but it's been slow progress just because of the saddle, which has been pinching him. But now nothing is pinching him, and he can really move a lot better, and he's gained so much strength that the cantering is just coming by itself basically. And me asking him and telling him that you can do this, and him finding out that it's a lot of fun. So his canters are becoming more and more airy and forward and very nice. And so here you can see it's really nice trot work. He's been nice and active here and stretching pretty optimally for his level. And here I'm asking a little bit more so that he would pick up a little bit more, and just there, that was better. He came up a little bit too high there, just a tad too high, but otherwise it was looking really good. And he was responding by increasing the tempo and not really running off, except for that little bit. So here we go. I thought that was the last bit was so good that I thought, okay, he has not given me such a tempo change before. So I thought that's it, that's enough, and that was our session for today. I hope you enjoyed it.